So as we find ourselves on the cusp of a brand new Formula One 2017 season, indeed, by the time this is being recorded, free practices 1 and 2 have already happened in Spain. But we're on the cusp of the real beginning of the season. The first time the cars will be running 100% full blood, pedal to the fucking metal, qualifying for Australia is going to be so exciting. I'm pumped beyond belief. So whilst just before we go into the full-fledged season, I'm going to have a quick look at the testing, what I think's going to go down, and how I think the status of the 2017 season is. Of course, the raft of new changes have been brought in. It's pretty much flicking a hard reset as the balance of power shifts from Bernie Ecclestone, who's reduced his role's been reduced to some sort of nonsense position that basically means, yeah, thanks for what you've done. Here's a voice on the sport. Now let us do our bit. The new guys in are a bunch of Yanks, so I'm expecting it to basically be IndyCar, but it's not really going to happen. JK. But one thing, of course, the notice with the rule changes was everyone expected Adrian Newey's car to be looking good, and everyone's eyes were on Red Bull during testing. Red Bull had a very simple car and pulled out in free practices 1 and 2. There was a lot more bodywork attached to the car, lots of bits and bobs that you'd expect of a 21st century Formula 1 machine. All of the weird things poking off at funny angles with weird fins and such were all present and correct. Of course, Mercedes were doing that by the shed load. There seemed to be more Pritt stick than anything else, and weird spaces were the order of the day. Ferrari keeping it nice and clean. Of course, cars are now far lower and wider than they were in previous years, going back towards the sort of 2008 and even earlier years. And really, the last time we saw cars like this was about sort of mid-90s. The tail end of the 90s, which was brought in along with grooved tyres. Speaking of tyres, they're anticipated to run a lot further than they ever have done before. Some people are anticipating one-stop races becoming a norm, as everyone sort of moaned about at Sochi 2014, I think it was 2014, where everyone made predominantly one-stopping strategies. I think, for honest, it's probably quite a good thing. I think that pit stops are becoming far more oversaturated. I mean, 3-4 pit stop races are just absurd. I mean, you want to actually get some racing done rather than saying, oh, don't worry about that guy that's passing you because he's on worse tyres, he'll be coming in soon. Fucking don't worry about it. Unfortunately for me, the worst thing they've kept is DRS. We don't need it. We don't want it. I don't want it. It's terrible. It doesn't do anything what it's supposed to do. DRS only helps drivers who are in better machines, but further back the grid, who have had a poor qualifying session, get through to the front faster. There's no real benefit to it, and but possibly could change with the reduction of straight line speed downforce, which is meant to lose because obviously the more you gain, there's 30% more downforce going through corners on the newer 2017 cars, but of course the more downforce you have, the more you're set to lose, and you do lose it when you're towing somebody on a straight. So DRS might not be quite as OP, if you will, as it has been in previous installations of Formula 1, but I still think it should be gotten rid of pretty much altogether, or used in limited supply, as they kind of do in IndyCar, and perhaps with American investors and new Americans running the show, could turn out that way. That'd be a lot better than what we've got now. But beef aside on the technical regulations, let's have a look at the teams themselves. Mercedes, of course, cannot be written out and will not be written out of 2017 after blistering free practice 1 and 2, where Hamilton was half a second faster than Sebastian Vettel. Valtteri Bottas looking strong, but not too strong. I don't think he's going to be in any way in challenging Lewis this season. Whether or not Raikkonen and Vettel can pull it out of the bag, the hype train was real as far as Ferrari were concerned, pulling it out a nice stop at Catalonia. But again, of course, we haven't really seen them running in full trim yet, so card's still quite close to the chest until tomorrow, as it is, or today, or however what time works relative from the United Kingdom to Australia. Looking at the midfield battle, it's going to be certainly far more interesting than I think the front running 2 or 3. Of course, we have Williams, Force India, who were surprisingly good last season, coming in 4th ahead of my favourite team, Williams. We also have Toro Rosso, who are looking strong and with a new engine. Renault are too touted to also slot themselves into that midfield battle, as well as, of course, the Haas Motor Racing team. Which sadly leaves us to McLaren and Sauber, the perennial backrunners. Sauber they have been in the last few years, and the disappointingly so McLaren Honda team, who are struggling. Both teams having engine woes. McLaren, of course, with the ever slagged off Honda engine, and apparently that hasn't got much better at all. Test results apparently throwing in that the car is up to 20 miles per hour slower. 20 miles per hour slower than competition. On the side of Sauber, they're even running last year's engine because the technical regulations have changed. Engine regs, but because some reason they're allowed to run last year's engine. I can't see that benefiting them very much at all unless they're developing a chassis going forward to 2018. This is not going to be in any way Sauber's year. The problem is, of course, that Sauber could normally afford to do this, but with the absence of teams like Manor, Caterham, HRT that we've seen in the previous seasons, which we desperately need in Formula One, the grid of 20 cars is making that the Blues are probably going to be way back at the pack. And this is disappointing considering their first ever season in Formula 1 in 1993 saw them being considerably more competitive than they are now. The midfield battle then is delegated, not relegated, to these five remaining teams. Williams, Renault, Toro Rosso, Haas, Force India. I got there in the end. Force India looking strong. You can never count them out. Whether or not they can continue to keep up with that development cycle that they so managed to wedge themselves into last year remains to be seen. And again, testing times are looking good. Williams, of course, you can never write out the classic Williams team, but with a strange lineup. Sons, Valtteri Bottas, my favourite driver, my main man. So between Williams' quite bizarre lineup of Lance Stroll and Felipe Massa, neither of whom I expected to be in this racing seat last season, it's going to be an interesting season in the midfield. The problem is you want that kind of action at the front of the pack rather than the back of the pack. Looking at the rest of the racing season, of course, we have now 20 Grand Prix. They've reduced it by one. They've gotten rid of the Indian Grand Prix, which I kind of agree with, although I thought it was actually quite a cool little track, to be fair. But for some reason, we still have the Azerbaijani Grand Prix, and for some bizarre reason, we still don't have a German Grand Prix, which I think is heretical. And you can't carry on for much longer. Germany being one of, motorsports in general's biggest hotspots. For some bizarre reason, we don't give them a German Grand Prix, even though they have more than enough suitable tracks and have proven so for the last 3-4 decades. So looking forward over the season as a whole, I can't imagine Mercedes being knocked off that perch anytime soon. Lewis Hamilton, with now no title contender at all, following the shock resignation of Nico Rosberg at the end of the previous season, after becoming world champion. I can only anticipate that it's going to be Hamilton running away with it. Bottas maybe going to come in third as he's getting used to his new racecraft. I'm going to anticipate Vettel being a good enough racer to get himself up in second, and Kimi Raikkonen hanging on to everyone else's coattails coming in fourth. I'd like to be proven wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be. Hamilton's going to charge away with most races this season. Possibly weather and tyre dependent, maybe what plays to the weaknesses of the Mercedes, although if you can find out what they are, you're going to need a fucking magnifying glass, and all you'll see is weird ridges anyway. In the midfield battle, it'll be exciting. I anticipate, however, that Williams have got the funding to come ahead of Force India, and I'm not hopeful for McLaren's chances, but I think they can edge out whoever comes weakest off of the midfield battle. Sauber then are going to be relegated to the back position with a weak driver like Marcus Ericsson and some other guy that no one really knew until he started driving for them. I'm not looking forward to. They have not got the good chances this season. So overall, the Australian Grand Prix is going to be fun, and I think Ferrari have got a good chance. I think this will quite suit their car. We'll see what happens. If Formula One's a strange sport, you never know. I'm just psyched as hell. So let's everybody get ready to go racing. Once again. I'll give you a review of Australian Grand Prix after it happens. So stay tuned for more, folks. See you next time.